Hey everybody, what's happening? So today's video, we're going to talk about the new law that went into effect that's called the PACT Act. And it deals with your VA benefits, and that includes VA benefits, whether it's healthcare, disability, and other areas as well. The PACT Act is a new law that expands VA health care and benefits for veterans exposed to burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic substances. Now, this includes everything from Camp Lejeune water poisoning, Vietnam, Agent Orange, and that includes other areas within Vietnam that people may have been exposed to Agent Orange that weren't on the list before. It also covers Gulf War illness. And as everybody knows, there was sarin gas that was, that veterans were exposed to. There was also, you think about those midnight during the day oil fires that all we were doing was breathing in oil. You'd try to get, masks or bandanas around your mouth, but you were still inhaling oil and all those fumes and everything else. All those things are now covered. Also covered is your burn pits and other toxins that you could have been exposed to, radiation and other areas. This is the biggest increase, I think, in VA history for benefits and disability benefits, as well as healthcare support and benefits as well in history. The one thing I want to tell you, we'll also flash it up on the screen. If you want to get more information and you need to make a phone call, the number to call is 1-800-698-2411. Again, 1-800-698-2411. And that way you can talk to someone if you have questions or anything else like that. Now, the other thing I'll do that down in the comments below, I'm going to have links to what I'm reading now and going through from the VA right now, as well as I'll have other links that cover which items are covered, and all applicable links that I think that will help you out, for you to get the help you need, and the help that you deserve. And one thing I'll say as I go through this is, remember, you deserve it, and don't think that someone deserves it more than you do. This can also help your families. This could turn around and get you the disability benefits that you deserve. So don't sit there and say, well, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. Take the time after you watch this video, sit down, start putting your stuff together, and we'll talk about the things that I recommend you put together during the video as well. Okay, so with that being said, let's get into it a little deeper now. All right, and what I'm going to do is go through some of the FAQs that I have available, that should be able to give us some insight into what's going, or give you some insight into what's going on. So we'll talk about what the PACT Act is and how it'll affect your VA benefits and care. So, like I said earlier, the PACT Act is perhaps the largest healthcare and benefits expansion in VA history. Now, the full name of the law is it's named the Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson, honoring our promise to address comprehensive toxics, or PACT Act is what it's called. So what changes will it bring? The PACT Act will bring these changes, okay? It expands and extends the eligibility for VA healthcare for veterans with toxic exposures and veterans of the Vietnam, Gulf War, and post 9/11 eras. It adds 20 plus more presumptive condition for burn pits, Agent Orange, and other toxic exposures. And I briefly talked about those other toxic exposures at the beginning when we talked about Camp Lejeune water poisoning, the Gulf War, the sarin gas, and other exposures as well. Adds more presumptive exposure locations for Agent Orange and radiation. So, in other words, before for Agent Orange, they said, well, you had to have been here, this particular area to get the benefits. Now they've expanded it. So they give you more areas in Vietnam that you could have served that are now covered under the Agent Orange. Okay. That needs to be looked into. It requires VA to provide a toxic exposure screening to every veteran enrolled in VA healthcare. Now, if you say, wait a minute, I'm not in VA healthcare. Well, what you need to do is contact your VSO, reach out to the VA hospital closest to you, and ask to become a part of the VA healthcare system. Take advantage. Explain that you fall under the PACT Act. You were there during these exposures. That you believe that you are affected by the PACT Act and that you want to get in there to get screened and so forth. So reach out. Don't take no for an answer. Reach out. Get with your VSO. They will definitely be able to help you. And I will have a link to how to find your VSO in your local area. And that's your Veteran Services Officer or office. Those are the people that can help you, request the benefits, try to get the disability, get the things that you deserve. They will help you out with that for sure. All right. So it requires the VA to give these toxic exposure screenings. I have mine scheduled for next week. So I start my screening next week. Also helps us improve research, staff education, and treatment related to toxic exposure. In other words, they also are requiring the VA hospitals and outsource areas to start being trained on all these toxic exposures to know that they took place. It's kind of interesting. I've talked to many of my doctors. They had no idea about the Camp Lejeune water poisoning. They had no idea about the sarin gas. They had no idea about the smoke and oil we were inhaling. Now, a lot of them knew about recent stuff, but they didn't know about those things in the past. They knew about the burn pits. They knew about a lot of those things, but they didn't know about those other things that are from farther back in time. So if you're a veteran or a survivor of a veteran, you need to file your claims now and apply for the PACT Act related benefits. Do not wait. You need to get started on this now. So there's a couple different things that I want to also bring up. There's a condition that is called, what they call it is a presumptive condition for toxic exposure. So I'm going to read what the VA wrote. I'm going to read it word for word of what they wrote on their website, which, like I said, is in the description below this links. To get VA disability rating, your disability must connect to your military service. For many health conditions, you need to prove that your service caused your condition. But for some conditions, we automatically assume or presume that your service caused your condition. We call these presumptive conditions. We consider a condition presumptive when it's established by law or regulation. If you have a presumptive condition, you don't need to prove that your service caused the condition. You only need to meet the service requirements for the presumption. What does that mean? Basically, you need to prove you were there. And that's pretty easy to do because of your service record book, right? Your SRB or whatever you want to call it, depending on the time you were in. You can always prove where you were. There's plenty of records to prove that. So let's talk about some of these issues and kind of what these exposures were. So we got the Gulf War era and post 9/11 veteran eligibility. So what burn pit and other toxic exposure conditions are now presumptive? It's a good question. They've added 20 burn pit and other toxic exposure presumption conditions based on the PACT Act. This change expands benefits for Gulf War era and post 9/11 veterans. So that includes, now, I may not pronounce some of these correctly. That's okay. I'm just a lowly jarhead and I can't always communicate well. So these include these cancers: brain cancer, gastrointestinal cancer, uh, glioblastoma. I think that's how you pronounce it. Head cancer of any type, kidney cancer, lymphatic cancer of any type, lymphoma of any type, melanoma, neck cancer of any type, pancreatic cancer, reproductive cancer, respiratory or breathing related cancers of any type, excuse me. These illnesses are now presumptive as well. Asthma, chronic bronchitis. Now, remember, you must get those. That was diagnosed after service. Asthma, chronic bronchitis, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, chronic rhinitis, chronic sinusitis, um, constructive bronchitis, and okay, I'm not going to read that one. I can't pronounce it any. Emphysema. And there's some other ones here that you can see that I have up on the screen, pulmonary fibrosis and so forth. And there's others as well. And like I said, you'll have the links so you can go into the other ones. So that covers the Gulf War, post 9/11, and the veteran eligibility. Vietnam era veteran eligibility. So, what new agent on presumptive conditions will the VA add? So, based on the PACT Act, they've added two new Agent Orange presumptive conditions: high blood pressure, hypertension, and MGUS, monoglonal. Okay, I can't pronounce it, but it's called MGUS, has been added to the list of presumptive conditions. Let's see. I want to see if they talk about the locations in here. 5 new locations to the list of presumptive locations. So, any U.S. or Royal Thai military base in Thailand from January 9th, 1962 through June 30th, 1976. Laos from December 1st, 1965 through September 30th, 1969. Cambodia, let's see, at Kampong Cham province from April 16th, 1969 to April 30th, 1969. Guam or American Samoa, or in the territorial waters off of Guam or American Samoa from January 9th, 1962 to July 31st, 1980. And Johnston Atoll, or on a ship that was called Johnston Atoll from January 1st, 1972 through September 30th, 1977. So these are more locations. And those are some things to think about, right? So if you served in those locations, they've been added on to the current list. Let's talk about how do you file a disability claim. Again, what I preach all the time, I recommend you go to your VSO, you know, file a VA disability compensation online, you know, those types of things. But a VSO, which I'll include a link in the description below, your Veterans Service Office can help you with all of these items. They're well aware of what's going on and can definitely help you from that perspective. And don't wait. Get it started now. It's time for you to get involved and get this thing taken care of. What if the VA denied your claim, but now it considers my conditions presumptive? So if in the past you submitted a claim and they turned you down, you got to relook at this. These are huge changes. So you knew you were involved. You knew it caused a problem for you. So resubmit, resubmit. Okay. Now, how can you apply? There's two different ways you can do it. One, I give you a phone number to help you. I'm also providing you a link for applying online. But one of the things I think you need to get involved in is reach out to VSO, reach out to the local VA hospital that you have available to you, and start getting involved in the VA healthcare. Talk about the PACT Act when you call them. Tell them you find yourself, you were in those situations and you want to get involved in VA healthcare. That way you can get the screening done. The VA has already started the screening, like I said. My screening, again, is this Wednesday. I start my screening. Get your screening started. Get looked at. Get involved. Start getting the benefits that you deserve. This is so important. It's important. It's so important for yourself. Again, and I'm going to read what they say. Okay. This is what they say. Can I get a toxic exposure screening at the VA? Toxic exposure screenings are available at the VA health facility across the country. Now, you have to be enrolled in VA healthcare. If you think that you fall under these things, well, guess what? See if you can get into VA healthcare. Reach out to VSO, ask them what you need to do so you can get a screening. There's ways to get screening. VSOs will help you. But let me go on a little bit more. Every veteran enrolled in VA healthcare will receive an initial screening and follow-up screenings at least once every 5 years. Veterans who are not enrolled and who meet eligibility requirements will have an opportunity to enroll and receiving the screening. Again, veterans who are not enrolled in the VA healthcare and who meet eligibility requirements will have an opportunity to enroll and receive the screening. All right, that's where I go back to. That's what you need to do is enroll for the screening. The screening will ask you if you think you were exposed to any of these hazards while serving: open burn pits or other airborne hazards, Gulf War related exposure, Agent Orange, radiation, Camp Lejeune, contaminated water exposure, and other exposures. We will give you information about the benefits, registry exams, and clinical resources that you may need. Ask about the screening at your next VA healthcare appointment if you don't have one upcoming, and so forth. So they talk about that. So the most important thing is for you to get back in there and say, yes, this is applicable. And again, open burn pits, the Gulf, if you were involved in the Gulf War, period, the first Gulf War, and you were there while they were burning those oil fields, then you know you were exposed. That smoke, that toxin was all going into your lungs. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Get involved. Have something taken about it. And how many of you were out there and you know that while you were moving through different areas, what happened? Your NBC alarms were going off. People are saying, oh, it's not real, it's false positive. The sarin gas that our bombs, by accident, when blowing up their munitions, ended up getting us exposed to sarin gas. That's important. So those types of things you want to bring up. Burn pits when you were in the recent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and all these different places. So get started. If you have any questions, comments, please leave the comments below. I'll have all the links you need to find out more information. Oh, before I finish up, let's get down and talk about information for survivors. Can a veteran survivor get compensation payments under the PACT Act? Yes. If you're a surviving family member of a veteran, you may be eligible for these benefits. So, what are they? Now, again, you can reach out to the military VSO and tell them this is this is who I am. I am a veteran spouse, and go through the different things and tell them what your veteran went through, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. So, a monthly VA dependency and indemnity compensation via debt payment. You may qualify if you're a surviving spouse, dependent child, or parent of a veteran who died from service connected disability. There is a link on this page that I will also ensure that we add um, in the comments below on how you can apply. Um, Also, a one-time accrued benefit payment. You may qualify if a surviving spouse, dependent child, or dependent parent of a veteran who we owed unpaid benefits at the time of their death. So if they should have gotten it for Agent Orange at the time of their death and they weren't receiving the benefits they should have gotten, then you can submit so that you get that one-time payment of what they should have gotten. And of course, there is a survivor's pension. You may qualify if you're a surviving spouse or child of a veteran with wartime service. So again, I'm including the link on how to apply down below so you can reach out and gain that information. And again, if you've already applied and they turned you down, you need to look to see if it may be new areas and actually be applicable. Okay. So you still want to reapply if you think that it may be applicable. All right. So that kind of covers what I was going to talk about today. I hope this information helped you out. If it did, please hit the like button. And if you would subscribe to us, everything you do by leaving comments, liking, and subscribing helps the algorithm. In turn, what it does is get this information out to more veterans. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.